The Amtgard V9 committee just dropped a huge video. Today, I'm going over it with the newly dubbed Sir Lao Tzu the Builder. Let's get to it.
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, all. Goravan here to talk to you about where we're at. This section will cover some of the data we've gathered on the state of V8 since last GOTC, as well as some auxiliary data gathered from the org. First off, let's talk about the class surveys. We asked about each one individually, as well as all the classes as a whole. By asking respondents to give their ratings based on a variety of factors, we were able to compile tier lists of which classes were strongest and weakest.
Boom. Here we go. All right.
Yep, this one's going to take a minute.
Here we go.
Both of us are ready for this
boys, one. We are at almost at the length of the original video, and we are 4 minutes into the video. I love it.
Yep.
All right. Overall, start top left. Damage potential rankings. What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, so that is really interesting. And I'm not terribly surprised by that. I am surprised that Assassin is third compared to like Warrior or Barbarian. Just being it kind of in an armored class, but having the two kind of more offensive casters up there at the top, or CC casters, especially in the case of Druid, makes absolute sense. They like, as far as being able to completely disrupt the battlefield, it makes sense that's where it's at. I would maybe put Bard a little bit higher.
Me too. Personally. Bard being second to lowest, I thought was criminal. And then you compare that to Archer being as high as it was. I'm like, no.
This is important. Both of us have a huge Rising Winds bias. That's where we've played a lot of time. And in general, the Rising Winds doesn't value Archer as far as its damage potential as much as some other places. Like I think in just talking with Varl, like the West Coast really likes Archer and thinks Archer is extremely powerful. And that's just difference in areas. Like different areas have different metas and they value different things. I am surprised to see Archer there, to be completely honest. But I can see where that's the case. I feel like in the Nine Blades, whenever we would go up for their 6-hour capture the flag game, which is fantastic, that it seemed like there was a lot of archers and that they valued the potential there. And I guess the thought process is like it's the longest range caster in the game, essentially. But
maybe like if
personally, I think that other archer classes are better shooting a bow than Archer. But that's just me, and that's my inherent bias at our local meta, which is important to understand. There's different places, but yeah, that was super surprising to me.
If I look at which number of these classes are killing me on a kingdom level field most often, okay, Wizard, Druid, Assassin, all fair. You know, those are annoying and obnoxious. I almost never have to worry about Archer. Like Archer's down here with Healer with me. Bard I think should be up, but really other than those two, I feel Archer.
I think Bard's middle of the tier.
Yeah. Everything else lines up. I'm okay with the rest of those. I'm surprised that people so clearly had a large gap between Wizard and Druid.
To be fair, they're on Bard. There is a difference between damage potential and controlling potential. But still, it's just surprising. Yeah, I'm surprised that Monk is above Paladin. Admittedly, it maybe was whenever the surveys and things went out, people weren't completely used to it. But just in general, I'm much more afraid of someone with 4 points of armor running at me than a Monk, personally, especially with the way that I play the game. I'm definitely very heavily in the ranged category. So yeah, it is surprising to see things pan out that way. But I guess that we'll say the lower third, that kind of line where like kind of Scout Monk is, it's really close. Like it's really, really close there.
And I think for the most part, I would agree with that one. I don't think that the damage potential ranking, other than those like two big outliers, I don't think that's the biggest, I don't know, the most egregious one out of all of these charts that we have. I'm all right with that one. Let's move to the control rating. Anything here just absolutely jump out?
Icy Blast per life. I think Druid is just number one. I really do. Like Druids, their toolkit is so powerful. Especially whenever you're going kind of ranger casting Druid. So you're shooting a bow, so you're keeping pressure on the field with a bow the whole time, along with the ability to cast spells. In this case, control spells, not necessarily like a buffing potential. But even that should be taken into account, like how you're able to enable people on your team to kind of hold ground. That's definitely where a lot of Druid shines, is you can keep, I guess, a very powerful board state whenever you're kind of looking at the battlefield as a whole by strengthening certain areas that wouldn't normally have the same ability to hold and push and be immune to different odds and ends with Lycan and command and things like that. So in my opinion, Druid tops this super heavily, like without a doubt.
Yeah. The ones that are kind of weird to me are, I guess I might have just a different idea of what control is, because I think all of these ones down here, anti-paladin through barbarian, can exert a huge amount of field control because they can wield pole arms in a similar way to archer and scout, because, you know, a half-drawn bow is going to exert a cone of control.
Absolutely.
And healer, for me, healer is support, but I don't think of healer as a control class, like, at all.
It can spell ball a little, so it has some tools. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to argue it for being particularly strong, but it does have some tools to be able to, I guess, especially with abeyance. I was talking about this at Park today, even, that abeyance is second best spell ball in the game, pretty much. Like, it's super powerful.
What do you think is better than it? Ice ball?
Sphere of Annihilation.
Oh, I don't think sphere. Different conversation.
Yeah, it is.
Ice ball and abeyance are like 1-2 for me.
And it was just take those two in consideration with each other. Like, abeyance is going to be extremely stronger in comparison, because if you so desire, you can kill them, sort of thing, and there's nothing they can do about it. You can wait until they're ticking down to the last few seconds, get the kill, and move on, sort of thing. So abeyance is just extremely powerful, which is great for healer. And of course, they have stun and a couple other like different things in the toolkit, especially with people that are in sub and dead characters. But I get what you're saying. Like, someone with a pole will push back on a battle line, and on top of all that, like, just the threat of having a fight after death is it's pretty big.
Well, and then
so that's a little surprising, but
warriors with their AA, I feel like it's just an inherent. I have to pay more attention to where the healer is, which is pulling my, I don't know, brain capacity away from what else I am trying to do, because of what their abilities are. Where healer, I almost never have to pay attention to healers, because most of them are never actually in the front line doing anything, so they're not exerting control in that manner. Other than in small corridor games like a Bridge Wars, and then you get all the spell balls coming out.
I guess this is something to keep in mind on this sort of thing, is we are evaluating this question in particular from a threat map. Essentially, we're creating a heat map of threat on the field. That's how we interpret the question. While some people just like look at the abilities. Oh, what does Barbarian have that actually stops people? It's like, well, you have, like, I guess Brutal Strike gives a little bit of something to somebody else, but like they don't have any real class abilities that are affecting anyone else, and that could be the way that they interpreted the question on this sort of thing.
Well, and what's crazy to me about this, if you look at some of these other ones, right, there aren't, like in this first one, there aren't any really red ones, but over here, Barbarian and Monk are like at very clearly at the bottom, because they're in red, and the average is so low. And I don't know. I think that all of these should be a little higher up, but it is what it is. Going into survivability. I disagree with 1 and 2. I think they should
Oh man, I disagree with you so hard on this.
Oh, really? Okay, give me a survivability thing that assassin can do that druid cannot.
Okay, so the difference here is the druid has to significantly well, all right, let me back up. I'll answer your question. Blink. Yep, you have blink, so you're able to go in sub and still actually move, and that's something that druid doesn't have. If you want to, like, it's a little apples to oranges, but not that different. Like whenever you step into the shadows versus stone form, like effectively
teleport.
Yeah, like we're looking at the same thing on those things. One of the differences being is everything on assassin is going to be per life, which is pretty big in that regard. So for a druid to bring the same amount of, in this case, we'll say stone forms, to match what assassins are able to do throughout the game, they're significantly hampering their list and dedicating a ton of points to it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's what I do in a park. Like whenever I'm shooting bow at a park and I don't want to like power game too much, especially whenever there's a lot of new players, I play druid with 20 stone forms and a handful of other things, sort of thing. So I get what you're saying, but assassins, like the per life is huge, and the state of being in sub, admittedly, the incanes to get out are pretty quick. So this doesn't come into play very much, but like shatter is a pretty common spell to bring on the field. So you have to really keep your head on a swivel to not get shattered. Usually the spells cast on insubstantial targets are just annoying sort of things, like, hey, go away for a little bit. But druids are susceptible to kills on that. So there's one thing to consider as far as like what states you're actually going into. Whenever you're insubstantial, you can still do a lot of things, like as opposed to just you're a block of ice, apparently. So I am completely biased on this. 100% understand it, because I play assassin pretty much exclusively right now, and I think it's the highest in terms of survivability, because you don't need pro mag, because as soon as someone starts casting on you, you go insubstantial, you break the cast. Easy peasy. And they start casting on you something insubstantial, you go right back into substantial form. And you just have, I look at it as 4 per life, and then teleport you're using to do things on objectives and things like that. So they're just so strong.
It's super close here between assassin and druid, which is interesting to me. I don't know if I agree with bard being super survivable. I think personally monk should be lower. Everything with armor down here, paladin, anti-paladin, scout, should all be above monk, and in my opinion probably above bard.
Absolutely. 100%. Like armor, especially whenever you're looking at warrior with ancestral armor, like that's your like missile block half the time, compared to monk, which has to pay attention to a lot of these things. So warrior being so far down, or I mean it is 4th, so it's not too bad, but I would imagine monk, because skill-based survivability is a lot different than just having armor on.
Well, paladin, anti-paladin, scout, barbarian all being lower than monk is kind of silly to me. I think just any 2 points of armor is going to be better than 90% of what a monk can do.
100%. Like I'm right there with you. Like I don't even think archer should be like so great, because don't archers get 2 points? Like
they can, whether they actually wear it, I can't tell
exactly.
you. Like
agree completely. But like in a vacuum, you're looking at the theoretical capability of the class. So like someone walking around 2 points of armor and a stick is still kind of dangerous at the end of the day.
Well,
and they can get away.
90% of the time, I'd rather have 2 points of armor and a stick compared to a monk with a pole, or you know what I mean? Just like monk with no armor versus someone with armor. The monks are really like
100%,
give me more armor all day.
And the idea of like being able to apply like magic armor through druid to these classes, I don't think this is just an opinion thing, isn't valid to say, oh, monks always get Lycan or this or that, because anyone can get that enchantment except for barbarian. But still, like, anyone can get that. I get, there's a good point. Having traded Enlightened Soul does add to the survivability. Someone can't point at you and say you're dead, which goes a long way in terms of survivability. So as we talk about it more and more, I'm less worried about, I mean, I would put monk a little bit lower, but it's not, to me, it's not egregious or anything. Personally, still,
all of this one is real close, right? We're at 2.6 to 5.9. Like that's compared to some of these other ones, that's not too terribly wide of a spread.
Yeah. And I imagine there's a lot of bias on that sort of question, because like if someone is really good in your kingdom or your park that plays a certain class, you're like, great, we have to deal with, I don't know, Sir Windexor or something like that, playing Scout again. They kill all of us.
So teamwork potential, agree, disagree on any of these?
Let's see. So yeah, Druid makes absolute sense. Like they're fantastic. That healer makes absolute sense. I would put Bard a little bit lower. Like just think of some of the buffs that go on with Bard. Their Song of Power that is something to take into consideration. 100%.
I think that most people are probably thinking the Battery Bard build.
Yeah, 100%. Like bring Song of Power and everything. I like Paladins being higher in teamwork personally.
I agree.
I think the kit in general for Paladin lends itself very well to being a team player. So I might want it a little bit higher. Like I might switch Wizard and Paladin personally.
Do you think Wizard's a super team? Like maybe it's just the Wizards I play with. Most of the good Wizards that I play with are incredibly selfish players and don't play a teamwork build at all. And I get maybe you can go a more teamwork oriented build. I don't see it that often.
Yeah, it's rare. Like half the time, whenever you see Wizards giving each other buffs, it's two Wizards giving each other Void Touch. So yeah, like I'd agree with that. Personally, I put Wizard a little bit lower. Wizards work really well with other Wizards. If you have two Wizards doing a kill combo, one person starts Icy Blast and someone starts Shattering a little bit slower, apply the state, and then kill them, and then go up and steal life, for example. Wizards with each other have a lot of synergy. Is it fourth place synergy? Personally, I would probably disagree with that a little bit. In the same way, like, oh man, like I don't see how Barbarian is so low on this list. With one of the most common tactics in our game is bar bombs. Like that is like it has a name that everyone knows, sort of thing. So
especially
I feel like
over like Archer. What's archery?
Exactly.
What's an Archer do with other teammates other than hey duck?
Yeah, like Archer should be. They don't have any abilities that really synergize with other people outside of like the stop state sort of thing. With pinning arrow. So like, yes, like they have offensive ability inherently just by using a bow, but that's not unique to Archer. So looking at what the abilities specifically to the class is, I don't think that I like the the ranking particularly well. But hey, again, everyone has different opinions on these things, and that's A-okay.
Yeah, for sure. This next one, the adaptability ranking, is kind of different. Like it's a weird thing to rate in my heart. Like, what do you mean? Adaptability is very similar to survivability in my mind. And I guess there's a little bit difference here, but I don't have any super strong opinions on adaptability, just because it's such a weird.
I have one hot take on this.
Go for it.
I am fighting between Druid and Healer on this. If you really do a deep dive into the Healer spell list, they have a tool for just about everything. Like they can make a list that can deal with just about every single thing in the game. And not everyone can say that. Really, hardly anyone can say that. Druid is good, but Druid, especially whenever you're going candy, like it has a static kind of play style, but it can do so much. So I'm completely fine with Druid being number 1. I would put Healer as number 2 because at a drop of a hat, you might, I need to be a res bot for a little bit. It's like, I need to, like, say if you have time to change your list, it's like I need to be a warder and get some of these buffs out here and get these pro match persistence and things like that out there. So like they healers have such distinct different play styles, whether you're necro priest, warder, or just vanilla healer, that can do so many different things and affect the game in so many different ways. Personally, I put healer high on there.
I would too. I think I would put healer fairly high. The only knock on healer is meta wise. There's really only 2 ways to play it, right? There's warder, and warder isn't even that great most of the time, and then there's just your normal necro priest build. And so while I feel like the necro priest build carries healer in most game types, that build is super adaptable. So I get what you're saying there, but like I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of people running just necro. Like, you
don't see the gummy builds super often. They have their places. Like me and York, I mean, that's what we did whenever we went up to Canada for their super awesome capture the flag game, and we just ran gummy the whole time. So like it can have its place, but I feel you don't see it super often. That could be just our local level sort of thing, but their ability to deal with dead state compared to in sub state and things like that other people don't have, I think is huge. So I don't know, that's my only real strong feeling on it.
I don't really have a strong feeling on any of this. I think it's a weird one to rank, but hey, more data is more data.
Yep.
The next one here, theme, is super interesting to me because look at how close the spread is compared to all of the other ones. I guess I'll start this one off. I don't think anti-paladin fits the theme very well at all. Just because like anti-paladin, I think, is the one that has the least amount of like identity for the class. Like we love the role play aspect of anti-paladin, but the class is just a conglomeration of other abilities that other classes get. I don't feel like anti-paladin is super thematic outside of the people that play it do a really good job with it.
And honestly, that's probably where a lot of this comes into it. Like just having certain names, people can identify with the classes a lot and really dig into their role playing and things like that. So, this is such a subjective question. That's probably why everything is so close, because everyone
they're all pretty good, right? If you bring in a new player and say, "Hey, what do you want to play from D&D or your favorite video game?" We're going to have a class for it.
Yep.
I think the only thing that's kind of, and I've complained about this for years and years and years. The only main archetype that we don't have is the cleric. We don't have the massive armor and heals and reses.
The closest thing we have to is a paladin, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. It's not.
And that's fine. That's just kind of where we're at. Who knows? Maybe we'll see this in V9.
So. I'd love it.
Wink.
We also don't have what traditionally, like in a D&D paladin, and I think we could fix that very easily. I've talked about this too, about giving paladin a smite ability. I feel like,
or a lay on hands, man.
Well, they kind of have lay on hands with their heal and their res. I feel like thematically that's close enough.
It's what you're saying. Like it's a borrowed ability as opposed to, hey, like a paladin can just walk up and lay on hands someone and move on.
Make it essentially a heal, but make it super fast, which is what they're looking about doing with greater heal and greater res and these buffs that might come through.
Things like that.
Yeah, but if you give them a smite of some kind, and maybe it is an insta go through, maybe it ignores armor or something. I don't know exactly what it is.
Make someone fragile.
For the next hit, like do something with. But other than those two, like Archer and Scout fit your Ranger role fine. The Monk is great. Barbarian is fantastic. I'm surprised Barbarian is so low down here.
Yeah, but they're so close. It's hard to like.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell because like I would throw Barbarian way up there on that, and exactly what you said. Same thing with Monk. But these numbers are so close. It would
almost
be hard.
It's almost inconsequential. Like And then rules appeal rating. Again, another one that's pretty dang close. Nothing really jumps out at me here.
Yeah, it's a little surprising because to me, this is the question: is like, which one of these are overpowered? I mean, honestly, that's kind of what the question lends itself to. Like
maybe
overall,
not even
I don't think it's terribly surprising that Druid's up there.
I wouldn't call it necessarily the overpowered one, but this is the one where if you enjoy min-maxing, which class do you enjoy? And of course, it's Druid, Wizard, Healer. You know what I mean? Like that makes complete sense.
Spell lists, 100%. Being able to actually change things goes a long way.
Which I'm surprised Scout isn't higher on this list for someone who really enjoys being able to like rule lawyer a little bit. Like I feel like they should be a little higher, but even then, I think this is perfectly fine.
I'm just turning you up a little bit.
Oh, you're good, man. My mic might be keep slipping down. You got anything else on this page before we move on?
Nah, I think this is good. Like we have a chronic problem of we'll sit down and want to talk about one thing and it'll be 5 hours later and I'm late for dinner. So, so it's like maybe both of us bite into this sort of crunch because this is crunch right here. And I absolutely love looking at kind of this data. And we'll be here all night if we don't.
Well, we can break it up into 3 episodes if we need to, right?
If we have to, yeah. We'll see. We'll see what the timing is. Like I said, Manima's going to get here at like 10 o'clock tonight, and I'm afraid that we're going to still be running, and he'll hear us bad-mouthing him.
That's all right. He can handle it.
Able to rate were more straightforward, such as ability to deal damage.
We've hit the 4-minute video or 4-minute mark in the video.
Subjective factors like how much
gosh,
theming and flavor, or from the mechanics the class uses. The caster classes were our front runners, though not exclusively. Every class except
and that's kind of be expected. Just the way that the game is currently structured, they have the ability to be stronger than just about anything else.
Anti-Paladin was collected after the limitations on those classes were relaxed, but before the populace had a significant amount of playtime under their belt. So take that data with a grain of salt. For the class surveys, we also asked people to self-report whether they consider themselves skilled or mains for each class, and while they tended to match the general populace in their opinions,
and this one is
own class.
Interesting. Oh,
you want to go back one? This one?
Yeah, like I don't think anyone's crazy surprised that like we're seeing the casters at the top on that. And like seeing Druid as number 1. I think that is exactly kind of what we expected out of that. I'm a little surprised that the we'll say the skill on Scout is as low as it is because the people that play Scout love Scout.
Yeah,
like
but
there's only like
Scout. There's only like 4 of them though, so they didn't get the survey results.
Yeah, so I am a little bit surprised that that's there, like kind of where it's at. But I mean, if you look at it, like they are. It makes a little sense. Like they're exactly the almost mirrors to each other of like what you play versus how skilled you think you are, which makes sense, sort of thing. But some of the, I guess, a little more niche classes, like i.e. like Monk or Scout, I thought would be a little bit higher on the skill, just because the people that play them actually dedicate a little bit more time to it, I guess, and really take a lot of time to hone in on. And that's me with Assassin. Like I said, at this point I'm playing Assassin exclusively. And that would be higher than anything for me, except for maybe Druid, because I played so much with Phoenix League.
I'm looking at this here, and I'm thinking back to my tier list I did a little bit ago. The only ones that are kind of off from me, I think I had Warrior up here, which is fine. That's only 1 off. I had Archer way awful. Like people I think are way overrating Archer here. And then I had Paladin and Anti-Paladin above Scout, Monk, Archer. But I think people are realizing, me too. If I were going to remake my tier list, I would put Paladin higher than what I did. I think that as more people are playing Paladin, in particular, Anti-Paladin's still pretty bad, but I think Paladin's pretty good. I still think that like Scout and Archer are the 2 worst in the game. And so to see Archer be all the way up here is very surprising to me.
In all honesty, Paladin and Barbarian should be close to each other because they like some of their biggest virtues as far as like the class goes is being armored. Paladin has a little bit of an edge on that, but being armored, but like not worrying about the command. Like that goes
it's huge
so far, because you're like, look at your like number 3 class on there that's Bard, which has a whole lot of command. Immediately being able to counter a third of someone's list, or depending on how they build it. Like, yeah, you can be shoved, but you're not like getting all the different command spells, sort of thing. Goes a long way as far as like meta analysis. So it's like, yeah, it just in its own vacuum, it might not be the strongest in the world, but being stronger than something that a lot of people play, or I guess the counter to something a lot of people play, goes a long way on that. And I guess they do mention it as like there wasn't a lot of play time when it came to Paladin, anti-Paladin. And I don't think they're crazy towards the top or anything, but being 4 points, which is the break point on armor, which goes a long way as far as arrows go, that's super important. And especially they have niche meta, especially Paladin, with being able to give pro match to people in games like Phoenix League and things like that have very defined time, short time, quick and fast pace, and be able to develop a team around it. Personally, I'd put those a little bit higher, but yeah, they mentioned it. Like it hadn't been around for all that long as far as being open to everybody.
Well, and one of the things I'm excited about, and we'll get to this later in the video, the top 4 classes, power-wise, are the 4 that have archetypes, and I am very excited that they've committed.
Patrick.
Hey, spoiler! I'm excited about that spoiler, so I don't mind.
And while they match the general populace in their opinions, they across the board rated their own classes extremely highly in attractiveness of theme and attractiveness of mechanics.
Makes sense.
People are playing classes they like. You know what else people like? Magic.
Yeah. Give us less, please. Come on.
Next up, we'll cover magic and abilities. We established an overall list of every ability in V8 and gave each a score based on how respondents feel when playing with or against that ability. It included fairness and enjoyment, as well as frustration and
right. Top of the list. Any of these stand out on overall grade?
And this is the fairness one?
Yeah, well, this is all of them. So this is the overall ranking based on... Oh, hold on.
Included fairness and enjoyment, as well as frustration.
Okay, yeah, it's all 4 of them.
It's all 4 of them, yep. And then the overall ranking...
At the top of the list, we have men.
Honestly, men, great. It lets people play the game. Fantastic.
Same thing with release too, especially when, again, spoiler, some of the most hated ones in the game, or the least desirable ones, are these massive CC spells. Release being that high up there makes complete sense.
Yeah, and I'm surprised Force Bolt is there. Like,
me too. I never play with Force Bolt.
Yeah, it's not the strongest ball, and like, I'll be honest, I have a little bit of a stutter, so like saying Force Bolt 3 times is hard. Like, legitimately. Like that kills me that Force Bolt is that high. I just feel like a fool anytime I'm charging it. So I'm really surprised Force Bolt is that high. And I like to see that you're seeing some of these spell balls pretty high. And I think both of us kind of are on this page that we feel that there's a little bit much on, we're just in a field yelling at each other. And it's really hard to keep track of everything. Like you have to stop a lot to clarify and say, oh, I was 20 feet. No, you're 21 feet, sort of thing. Spell balls take a lot of that out of the picture.
Well, and look at this here, right? Just out of this whole list, if I just looked over it real quickly, there isn't a single enchantment on this list. Right? Like, all of the ones that people enjoy playing with are ones that, like the fireballs and the force bolts, the ones you can throw. Those are very quickly. I got hit with red ball, no big deal. Right? Swift, tracking, amulet, these things, they're all fairly easy to understand. You know what you're doing. None of the enchantments are on here, which I find fascinating, and hope
that is surprising,
and hope that the V9 committee take that into account. People don't seem to like enchantments.
Yeah, and this is a little counterintuitive to what you see kind of just in the game, because before every single battle game, you see people walking around and talking to every single druid. It's like, so are you Avatar of Nature? It's like, can you give me this? Can you give me this sort of thing? And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I love Gift Fair. And it
might be just because part of the rating for this is fairness, and maybe people like enchantments. It's just the enchantments we currently have are too overpowered, and so maybe it brought the level down, and then maybe they would get higher up. But at least in the current state of V8, for whatever reason, enchantments are not fun to play with or against.
Yeah, and this is probably they mentioned, I think, a little bit later in the video, like, to walk up to someone and not be able to visually tell what's going on with their abilities and things like that is not very fun. Like, you whether you're drum rolling someone in the back or something like that, and also they're like, oh, sorry, I had this many points of armor back there, or you're just fighting with someone. It's not incredibly fun to look at that, because a lot of people just keep spell strips on their person, tons of them, sort of thing. It's like, are those real? Are those not? Like, especially whenever it's a lot of people or you're in a battle line, so people aren't just shouting their enchantments over and over and over again. For the declarations, which is another thing that kind of adds as far as noise clutter sort of thing goes.
What's like, the longest? I can see how that's on here, other than heal. Heal takes forever. But is anything else on here like more than just a few word? I guess word of mending, but all of these are quick
first
spells.
Off, swift heal. Everyone uses swift heal.
Correct. But everything on here is a quick spell too, right? It's not
like the top two are ×5, which that's something to I guess consider a little bit. They take a little bit more time. They're great spells, but they do take a little bit of time. I think that is more of just they're good spells. But I get what you're saying. Like, there's not a lot of the like really long incants and things like that, or the awkward ones. Like pyrotechnics or agoraphobia or things like that aren't showing up.
All right, now let's get to the fun part.
End release, Force Bolt, Fireball, and Heal. On the other end of the spectrum are,
to the surprise of nobody, Ice Ball and Ice Blast are at the bottom of the list.
And like by a long shot. And that's Druid right there. That's prevalence of Druid right there.
The top 4 are all Druid. Like,
I mean, this is like cathartic because both of us like just hate it, sort of thing. Like, honestly, that's one of the reasons why I play Assassin. Is like, oh, you're casting Icy Blast? No, you're not. Like, it's like, I don't want to have to deal with this. Just go in sub. And Gift of Air, like, same thing. Like, Gift of Air is obnoxious. It is like, either your group of people just deal with it immediately, or you can't do a thing about it, and that person is going to stay there and bother you the entire time. Which doesn't feel great whenever like you might just not have the tools to actually be able to do anything about it. Admittedly, like there are a lot of tools, like whether you have Lycan or something like that. Like, yes, the tools are there, but it doesn't feel great to be in a situation where you're just like, well, I just can't play, sort of thing. So I'm not surprised to see that there. I'm only a little bit surprised to see Golem so low. Like, Golem is powerful, but I don't. It's annoying because of the other things that are tacked onto it, I guess.
And I think the big takeaway here for me is there aren't even a ton of enchantments even at the bottom end. Most of the things that are down here are, like you said, the things that don't let you play. Ice Ball, Icy Blast, Agoraphobia, Awe, Terror, Lost. Like, these are the things that people, what they don't like, seem to be the things that remove them from play. Not necessarily like most of the enchants probably fall in that middle area, other than Gift of Air and Golem.
It's the point at you and dice spells, sort of thing. Like, you see Finger of Death, Call Lightning, and for all intents and purposes, Stun, sort of thing. Like, it's just not fun.
And I'm surprised, honestly, that Ancestral Armor is this low. I love Ancestral Armor. It's an easy spell to understand. It's a really good spell. And it's kind of what makes Warrior fun to play sometimes. That you don't just instantly get die.
Yeah. I guess the opposite side of that coin is if you're playing Invoker, for example, you just can't do anything against a Warrior with like, your option is to die or run. So it's, I guess, I don't have a negative 80% opinion of Ancestral Armor. I'm fine with it. I'm mostly neutral, to be honest. But I could see there's certain play styles that are just absolutely shut down by Ancestral Armor, which isn't the most fun. To kind of what we were mentioning earlier is like just not being able to play against something isn't great. Like having to throw 6 spell balls at a certain point, it's hard, sort of thing.
But I'll tell you, anything that counters magic in our game, I'm game for, because magic is so OP. Like
I don't like class gaming. Gotcha.
No, I enjoy class gaming. I just don't enjoy that the 4 best classes in the game are all the casters. I wish there was a more even spread, and I think we'll get there. But like anything like Ancestral Armor or any of the monks' abilities, like anything that allows you to counter casters, I think is going to inherently be healthy for the current state of the game, because casters are just so good.
Yes and no. Like that's an interesting kind of discussion as far as like game theory goes, because if you counter a caster with Pro Mag or Enlightened Soul or things like that,
but you don't even counter them with Pro Mag, because they have spells that can get rid of your Pro Mag.
admittedly, I'm not denying that, but we'll say traded Enlightened Soul, things like that. What you do is, and there has to be some amount of it, especially with Monk. Like Monk makes sense because it's what the class for hearing impaired, allowing that to kind of be a thing in the game. But like a caster doesn't have a lot to do against it if they're going like a shatter build, which we see on this list, because kill spells are not very fun for the people receiving the death.
Dude, I'd rather die than be Icy Blast, though. Like, man, waste a super high level spell on me. That's fine. But Ice Ball being a 2nd level spell or whatever that I have to sit here for forever.
Well, here's the thing: you count to 20 and then you shatter them, so they have to deal with, or if you Icy Blast, or 50 if you Ice Ball them. Like, it's kind of like salt in the wound. It's like, oh, you're not gonna die or like take a death. Well, we're gonna really make it bad for you, like here at the end.
The one spell on this list, or that didn't make the bottom of the list, that annoys me more than any other spell in the game: Heat Weapon.
That's interesting, and the idea of Heat Weapon is good. Like, it's an offensive cast that isn't just like killing someone, sort of thing, which is great. It's good. There's ways against it. Like, I mean, just having another stick is a way against it, sort of thing. But whenever you go like Warlock and have 10,000 of them,
well, there's nothing like playing Paladin or Warrior and you get a Pro Mag, and then you're so excited to go out there. I've got my armor on, I've got my pole, and then it's heated. All right, got to throw it down, pull out my other stick. Like, I don't know. We're getting into game theory stuff here, but I don't know. If Pro Mag extended to equipment, I think it would be fine.
And that's a little bit more on like looking at things like pyrotechnics. I think there's more of a point with that, with pyrotechnics than Heat Weapon necessarily, and there just goes all your things.
Well, at least pyrotechnics is expensive. Like, heat Weapon's not expensive.
Yeah, like Pyrotechnics is also one of the annoying spells to cast. I usually don't take it because I'll end up stuttering somewhere and just like, dang it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough though. Like, what makes Amtgard different from other games? I know you really enjoy some of the other like stick tag games, and that's great. Like, we need to have a place for people that are in that sort of thought. But one of the biggest appeals in Amtgard is our ANS, but also like having a magic system that doesn't feel like you're in a field. Lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt. So like, there still needs to be the idea of being able to empower the people that are wanting just to cast, sort of thing. So like, it's a tough decision, because whenever we just look at game theory and balance and things like that, that also separates us from the idea of the person, which is something we had to be careful with. So like, keeping some of these things like the shatter combo, like, like that is fine. 2 spells used to be able to accomplish one thing.
I don't mind combos because you are investing a significant amount of your spell list to make combos work. If you're doing 2 or 3 spell combos, it's the one hit ones that are frustrating to play against, I think.
Yep. No, I get you 100%.
We'll see going forward too. We'll see going forward too. They talk about the archetypes and trying to bring. How about this? Again, another game theory. It sounds like they're going to try to bring the other classes. They're going to buff the other classes to bring them up to the casters, where preferably I would rather them nerf the casters to bring them down to the others. Just because I think that if we get to buff the other classes, we're going to have to add more complexity to those classes with different spells and different abilities and all of this stuff. And I think we're already over inundated in all of that. I would rather bring everything down. This is what they do in League of Legends, right? They nerf the overpowered ones. They don't buff all 150 other champions. They nerf the 3 that are OP.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychological, I guess, issues, or I won't say issues, but like factors to take into account that with this sort of thing, because no one likes being nerfed, sort of thing. Like no one likes it. It doesn't matter if you are willingly admitting, oh yeah, this is overpowered. Let's say someone if there's a class that had 15 finger of deaths per life, sort of things, like how dare you nerf me? That feels terrible. This game is unplayable, sort of thing. Like no one likes it. So it's
except druids, man. I feel like even all the Paragon druids,
eventually
when they get nerfed, the Paragon druids are gonna be like, yeah.
It's gonna be it'll be I'm still mad, but
I get it. This is overdue. We had our 10-year run,
So it's a mess. Like there's so many things that they have to balance on this, and like while I don't envy the job, I think it is also it would be incredibly fun to try to explore world, to try to get all these things closer to on par with each other. So like shouts out to the V9 team, like good luck.
Have fun. We'll play it. Let's roll it here and get to how they plan on doing that. Because I think that I am excited seeing what they plan on doing, and I am confident that they will get us to a better state. So let's
Golem, Gift of Air, Icy Blast, and in dead last, Ice Ball. We saw that the ability complicated or unique effects tended to rank lower, as did those with more oppressive control states. Another type of negative experience that cropped up is the frustration of having to explain some of the more complex enchantments, such as Golem, Undead Minion, and Gift of Air. Lastly, while players certainly enjoy Amtgard's more powerful abilities, these tended to rank lower due to the negative experiences they often imparted on their targets. Changing tacks a little bit. Here we have some data extracted from the org by the wonderful Kismet, showing player license.
All right, super interesting. I don't want to belabor this.
I knew you would bite into this. I knew you were gonna just absolutely love this. Where's your soapbox? I'm surprised you're not like. Can we see your feet? Are you on it?
Whoa. What point you think I'm gonna say here?
I don't know, but I know you. And I know it's coming.
No, I'm just. I love this data because I have heard players say since about 2015. That Amtgard has been shrinking. And I like that we actually have data to back it up now. I wish what this was I want to see total numbers, which this doesn't necessarily give me total numbers. This just gives me total of players, new players in, and total of players leaving. But I want to see overall
it's just
numbers.
the difference between the integral between the two of them. Like if I'm pointing at my screen like an idiot. It's like we're not in the same room, guys. It's like the player growth is the difference in area between those two lines. And why what year is that? 2016? Like why that's so important is like soon as you like create an inverse between those two, you're now losing players. So until that point is like, even if it wasn't growing as much, it's still growing, for example. But the inverse is like, all right, we're losing a ton of people. And yeah, like it hurts to see, honestly. It really does. I mean, I don't like to actually have like some sort of evidence of it. And
and we can argue about why, but the fact that it is happening and we can't argue that it isn't, right? For a long time, it was like, oh, that's just subjective, or that's just in your kingdom. But just game wide, we have some issues that we have to address. And I'm glad that we have the data to back that up.
Oh, dang. I joined in 2016.
You did that.
I think that's causation.
Yep. So over here, 50% of new players will quit before 6 months. I'm actually surprised that 50% isn't higher based on, because every new player, I'm assuming, is just like, if you show up once, sign a waiver, you're a new player. So I'm surprised that's not higher. 75% of players will quit before 5 years. I believe that. 200 credits is the milestone where you're more likely to stay than leave. Interesting.
Yep.
This bottom one here, toxic social interactions are the most reported reason for players leaving the game. Anecdotally, my enjoyment in the game is directly related to how much or how little I am on Amtgard social media pages. The less that I am on those settings in those areas, the more I am currently enjoying the game. And I've noticed that throughout my play. And I don't know if this is I don't think this is something a V9 committee can fix inherent necessarily. Nope. But I like that they have it here, right? Toxic social interactions are the most reported reason for players leaving the game. That is incredibly important for us to know going forward on how can we fix this over here. We got to fix the toxic social interactions. How do we do that? Different question. But at least that seems to be the main thing that we can work towards getting better.
Yeah, that's really tough because doing a root cause analysis on the subject of specifically the toxic social interactions, that's really hard. What is the root cause on all these people? Like some people, let's say everyone's Godric, it's going to be online stuff. It causes them more pain than it does pleasure and causes them to leave. But for a lot of people, one of the root cause analysis on it is going to be what is the same scenario or the same stimuli in each of these situations? Well, it's also them sort of thing, or it's one particular person at their park or one particular group. So how do you point to these? It's tough.
Well, and it says toxic social interactions, which means that there are multiple different interactions that are toxic. It's not just one specific thing, if that makes sense.
But I guess maybe the point I was getting is let's say whenever you and I are at the same park and I was just being such a jerk to you the whole time, just super mean, insulting your garb all the time, say that you can't play scout for beans sort of thing, that would be under the social, over and over, a systemic problem that is causing you to want to quit the game and just leave. Or the exact opposite, let's say that you're super nice or this and that, but you won't let me have 5 icy blasts of life. You're not letting me break the rules or something like that. And it's I'm the one at fault now because I'm the one that's kind of being a little bit of a butt. So it's really hard, but what you said it's important. At some point you have to be able to say what the issue is. You have to say, this is what we're struggling with. This is our thing. That's the first step of making any sort of changes.
First step over here is realizing we have a problem, which before this data, that was an arguable point. People are like, oh no, we're not actually losing players. Our events aren't actually smaller. Yes, they are. Step one is we got to realize that we're not growing at the pace we were 10 years ago. Why?
Yeah. Maybe semantics. Some people say potato. Some people say potato. Same difference.
Yeah, some people are just wrong though. So
don't talk about yourself like that, Godric.
Amtgard. Our takeaways here are that the player base peaked in 2016 and has been declining since then, even when looking solely at pre-pandemic numbers.
The hard part for me with this too, I know what happened in my kingdom around this time. And so I can pinpoint why I think the game in my area started to decline. But the thing is, that's an incredibly localized thing. I would want to see if you ask people in each kingdom what was going on around that, 2 years before, 2 years after, it would almost assuredly not be the same thing that my kingdom was going through. But yet all of the kingdoms seem to have this issue, which is just super, super interesting.
Yeah, and if I had to guess, like there's probably a decent amount of like there was just carryovers that people didn't deal with, like bad behavior we just didn't deal with for so long. And around that time, they started sort of things like, hey, we can't maintain this interaction sort of anymore. And like a lot of people won't like that. Like you'll lose a lot of your 5-year players or something like that. Like, and again, we can go back and forth on this a ton. Like,
well, one of the things that's going to be interesting here too, COC was around this time. Yeah. I think there are a lot of people that were driven out because.
Oh gosh, what year did V8 come out? Was it around 2016?
No, it was like 2012, I think, 2013.
Was it that far behind? In my head, it was like 2015 or something like that. Okay.
So, how about this? I was in college from 2010 to 2014. When I left college, when I went to college, it was still V7. When I got back in 2014, it was V8. So I don't remember at what point in there.
Me either. It's been so long that I don't remember a lot of the stuff. So we can't blame the V8 committee. Snap.
Oh, dang. I bet you we still could, though.
We believe that the release of V9 will provide a boost to growth and retention, counteracting our current decline and ensuring the future of Amtgard.
Hopefully.
Speaking of the future, please join me in welcoming Cord and Bunjo, who are going to talk a little bit about where we're going.